Got a chance to see Firebrand yesterday. Very excited to see Jude Law and Alicia Vikander take up this story about the British Tudor family. Let's talk about it right now. All right, welcome back to the channel, everyone. Thank you so much for taking your time to spend with me. I am your host, Frank Zank. I'm an award-winning screenwriter, novelist, and comic book writer, as well as the occasional board game designer. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. But remember to give me a like and a subscribe. Give me that thumbs up. And if you can subscribe, please do. We are trying to grow the channel out. Also, in the meantime, we have launched, we're on our final week on Backer Kit for Myth Lords. It is a deck builder area control card game. It plays 1 to now 5 players because we have unlocked the 5th player, where you're playing as some of the classic monsters, and the artwork here is done by Mark Spears. It's awesome. Anyway, the link to that is in the description below, so go ahead and jump on that if you can, because again, I only have 7 days left, so that's it's going to be awesome. So I'd like to get that all to you guys. We are fully funded, by the way. All right, so let's start talking about Firebrand, and it is a movie that is, I'm sure, on 0 person's radar. I didn't even know about the film. I was literally scrolling through AMC to see what I was going to see, and, you know, see when I was going to see The Watchers no matter what. And I saw this, I mean, the name doesn't even it doesn't even say history in any way, sense of form. So I was pretty surprised when I, you know, scrolled down to the trailer, and it was about, you know, the Tudors from the British monarchy. In this particular case, Henry VIII, and the story revolves around Catherine Parr. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a history lesson here. And if you have seen the Tudors that used to be on Showtime, then you're probably already aware of a lot of that history. But I went to England, and I loved all that stuff. So I'm a sucker for this. So as soon as I saw it was there, I hopped from one theater to the other. So I saw 2 movies, and this was by far the better of the 2. I have renewed respect for Jude Law. I mean, he physically looked like Henry VIII. It was crazy. So let's talk about Henry VIII's wives, because he had a bunch of them. He had 6 wives in total. Only 1 survived him. And so we had Catherine of Aragon, of which he divorced her. Anne Boleyn, which in my opinion is the most important of all his wives. She was beheaded. Okay, but what she left behind was Elizabeth. And we'll talk about Elizabeth here in a second. Jane Seymour died, but left a son named Edward, and then there was also her brother Thomas, and that gets important in here as well. Anne of Cleves, he divorced. Catherine Howard was beheaded, and then we have Catherine Parr, of which I've seen this both with a K and with a C. I don't understand why. But Catherine Parr, mostly I've seen it with a C. She was the only one to survive him. And it was only by his death that she was able to survive. Because she was pretty much on the chopping block. All right, so all this is obviously later in life, because he went through 6 wives already, so he was already older. And, you know, she was older as well. She was in her 30s when they got married. This was her 3rd marriage. And she was widowed 2 other times. So she was widowed 3 times during her lifetime. And she was married again after this. Talk about addicted. And she did eventually have a child, but not with him. So, and that's one of the things that is not correct in the actual movie, but we're going to talk about that as well. They did take a little bit of liberty here and there. So, Catherine Parr is known for some of the following things. She's known for publishing under her own name, without taking on a man's name, various prayer books. She was also the driving force for making England Protestant instead of Catholic. And this is why there was a lot of turmoil at this time, because Protestantism was kind of invading England and taking over Catholicism. So during this movie, we see Catherine with her friend that she grew up with named Anne Askew. And Anne was a devout Protestant. And she was doing speaking engagements and things to that effect, almost like being a preacher, about making England Protestant, which made her a heretic. So heretics were rounded up and set aflame. They were roasted. and not before being tortured, of course. They were tortured first, then set ablaze. So Anne was one of those people that was killed. So this is the very beginning of the movie. And Catherine wants Anne, since they're friends, to leave. She knows she's being hunted. She wants Anne to get out of Dodge. She knows she needs money to do that, so she hands her a necklace, which was a bad idea, that Henry had given her. All right, so at the beginning of the film, Catherine and Henry are already married for several years. Of course, she has not given him any kind of an heir at this point. The only male heir he has is Edward from Jane Seymour, and Edward is a child. There's also two other children at this point also, which is Mary, that was from Catherine of Aragon, and she ended up becoming Bloody Mary. And then there was Elizabeth by Anne Boleyn, which of course is the most famous child out of this entire group, because she becomes Elizabeth I. And she ended up reigning England for 45 years, but was also childless as far as I know. So that is the kind of path. So Catherine Parr ended up pushing Protestantism forward. Edward ends up dying before he even becomes a man. So he really never reigns. And then another woman, I forgot who it was, that took over as regent at that time. But Elizabeth, so Mary ends up stepping in. And then Mary dies, and then Elizabeth steps in at that point, and of course has her feud with Mary, Queen of Scots. So there's that whole turmoil of the Tudors, and we see, so Catherine is also, Mary and Elizabeth were estranged from Henry, and she ended up bringing them into court. So she's also known for that. So she's known for quite a bit. She was very, very intelligent, and I think that is what propelled. He was looking for somebody a little more mature, because his previous wife was a lot younger, and that was Catherine Howard. And I think he just got tired of her immaturity, so he was looking for somebody a little bit older, and that's what he ended up with Catherine Parr. So, again, let's go back to the film itself. So the film, let's talk about the various pieces that the look and feel is incredible, and that's what draws me to this stuff, especially when I've seen some of this stuff in real life, like the Tower of London and things to that effect. And the costumes are out of this world. The costumes are amazing. I don't know who the costume department was or who the key was on that, but boy, Really, really great stuff. And the settings, though we don't get to see, vast countryside or anything to that effect, we don't really get to see. It's all kind of claustrophobic, and it's meant to be that way on purpose. I really don't know much about this director. He's obviously not an American director. His name is Karim Anos. So I know very little about him. And Alicia Vikander, who has done, various things from playing Tomb Raider. She was in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. And she was in Machina. So she's done various things, but to me, this is her most memorable performance. And for sure, Jude Law, after seeing him in Captain Marvel and seeing him in this, wow, what a difference. My God. Oh, my God. So at this point, and I just heard this from someone, Henry had a jousting accident when he was younger. And he had a leg injury that was never end up healing. So because of that, he ended up getting this infection that was basically eating away and corroding his leg. So that's why he walked around with a cane. So it had to be cleaned. Technically, they should have severed the leg, but I guess they never did. For whatever reason, well, because he was a king or whatever, didn't want to show that he was legless. So they kept the leg on, but the guy was in constant pain. And, the wound was festering and to the point where it was basically taking his life. And that's what we see here. And I guess that the Jude Law wanted people to feel the sickness in the smell. So I guess someone created a scent for him that he wore during certain scenes that was like putrid. So when you see the people going, I think that half of that is true. So anyway, he was slowly dying because of this wound. And everyone was hoping, well, Alicia Vikander and all the rest of her circle was hoping he was going to die before, he was able to kill her. So there's a few things here that are incorrect. So when you see the movie, you know that's incorrect. She during the movie she's impregnated and then she has a miscarriage. That's wrong. She was never impregnated by him ever. And then Thomas Seymour, who you do see in the film, he ends up betraying her. And again, that's incorrect. He never betrayed her. And so there's a couple of things in there. In fact, Thomas Seymour ends up becoming her new husband, and they have a daughter together named Mary. So there is a couple of things that are left out as well, and that's one of them. But otherwise, well, from what I read, everything else is pretty true. The woman that played Elizabeth had a very distinct look, and I think that's why they chose her. Her name is Junia Reese. She has no credits. She has one credit prior to this, and that's it. And so she's pretty much done absolutely nothing. But she did a great job. I cannot fault the acting in here at all. Everyone really, really took this seriously. And I was appreciative of that. And it's based on a book by Elizabeth Fremantle. And it's written by, I don't know if these are sisters, but Henrietta Ashworth and Jessica Ashworth. I guess they're a writing team in one way or another. And, of course, they share a last name. So I don't know if they're married or if they're family in one way or another. I would assume they're probably family. But they did, like, Killing Eve and a couple of other things that they kind of wrote together. It was just one episode. The Crowded Room they did together. So just like 4 or 5 things. And then one of them was actually an actor. They did a good job. I can't complain about the writing either. I thought that it kept me enthralled, because a lot of times these are very, very slow films, and you kind of get lost because you're like, okay, can we just move on here? But the way that the movie is played, and again, this is a thing for the actors, there's a constant feel of dread. So you know that, I didn't know that she survived him. So when I went in there, I'm like, she's gonna be a goner. She's gonna be a goner. Also, her tomb was lost, and only in I think it was the 1600s or something to that effect. No, it was, like the 16 or 1700s. They end up finding the tomb. This guy ends up randomly finding it in like a basement of a monastery, and that her body was so well preserved in the wrappings that she still had skin. So, but yeah, I learned a lot after this was over. I went and did a whole bunch of research, because I knew very, very little about, Catherine Parr. And even when I saw the Tudors, you don't get to know the person like you know her with this film. And I kind of felt the same way about the movie that, I don't know if you knew this or not, but so the one that Margot Robbie, I don't know if anybody knew this or not, but Margot Robbie played Elizabeth I in a film. I like that film a lot, too. I own that movie, and I might even own this one. Mary Queen of Scots, I was right. That's what it's called, from 2018. And yeah, she played Elizabeth, and she's almost unrecognizable in it. Yeah, I got it right. Saoirse Ronan played Mary in that. Pretty amazing stuff. I think that English history is American history, because without English history, we don't exist. America doesn't exist. So, I mean, even though I'm Italian, I tend to feel like American history was derivative of English history. All right, well, that's it for me. I highly, highly recommend this film if you're a fan of history, and especially if you like that time period, the medieval type of stuff. You don't get to see any sword fighting or anything like that here. But to me, this was the acting propelled, and the costumes and the sets, and propelled this to a 9 for me. I really, really enjoyed it, and I was happy that I was able to jump in there after Watchers. All right, well, that's it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to give me that like and that subscribe. I really appreciate it. That thumbs up, and ring that bell, ding, ding. And then on top of that, remember the link in the description below for Myth Lords, classic monsters, where you can play as the classic monsters. We have Dracula, Frankenstein, the werewolf, and the creature from the deep. And then we have additional characters here, like Bride of Frankenstein and the Mummy and all the rest. And the artwork is phenomenal. And the game is only $35 at this point in time. And I'm just going to say that, because we may be rising the price. And then if you want to add anything to the game, we have a Oz expansion where you can play as Dorothy and the Wicked Witch, and then we have the other witches in here, and the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion, and Toto 2, and all that stuff. So definitely check that out. Again, link below. We'll take you to Backer Kit, and you can watch all kind of videos on there, and there's like a little promo video. It's a couple of minutes and stuff like that. All right, check out some other videos as well. And I will see you guys on the next episode, and support Firebrand, even though it's got a weird name. All right, talk to you later. Bye-bye.